Hello and welcome to another episode of the Born Too Late. Why am I saying? Okay, I have that. I'm just trying to say in some sort of weird accent. Thank you for tuning in, for listening, for curiosity getting the better of you, and listening to our podcast. It's called Born Too Late, and the whole thing revolves around myself, Jay Castro, and my friend Josh Rutledge, where we like to chat with people who are involved in underground music, whether it be musicians, label owners, journalists, DJs, anyone that's making a fuss in that arena right now. Josh, on this special 25th episode, what do we got on tap?
It's hard to believe that it's already the 25th episode.
I know.
Unbelievable, but here we are. We've made it 25 episodes. So with this being the 25th installment, we decided why not do something special. With that in mind, tonight we will be joined by not one, not two, not three, but four of our past guests, fan favorites, if you will, from the short history of Born Too Late. And we have asked each of our guests to discuss 5 albums that changed your life. That is the theme of tonight's program. So from episode 8, we have CC Voltage, a.k.a. Chad from Autogramm. From episode 11, we have Kevin McGovern from the legendary Prostitutes and now of Trouble Seekers. From episode 15, we have Daniel Kelley from Moral Panic. From episode 16, we have Adam Turkel from the new Brutarians. Quite a distinguished panel. Very interesting that Daniel and Adam are now label mates.
Right.
Alien Snatch Records. And Adam and Kevin were formerly label mates on Palato Records.
My gosh, that wasn't done purposefully.
Interesting connections here. And Jay and I love nothing more than to get people talking about the music they love. We'll even just start asking about random bands or records, and we'd love to get somebody going on that. So this is kind of a cool episode. We're very excited for the conversation to come, to hear which albums these individuals pick. So now, dear listener, prepare for at least a full hour of 6 dudes talking about records. Without any further ado, let's say hello to our distinguished panel.
Hey, I'm CC. Anyways, I kind of know these guys from a bunch of different bands that I've played in over the years, and I guess most recently it was a band called Disney Boys in Berlin when I was living there, and I think we did an interview with Audio Ammunition or something, I believe.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
cool.
Yeah. And then, more recently I played in a band called Autogramm here in Vancouver, and and I recently started a PR company, and so that's keeps me in touch with these guys as well.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
What's your PR company, or like doing for working with bands and stuff like that?
Yeah, radio and press, mostly North American, and sometimes I do a little bit of Europe, but yeah, radio and press.
Cool.
It's called No Rules PR.
No Rules PR. I'll definitely look it up.
Check it out.
Oh, my turn. Right? Yeah, I'm Kevin. So I know Adam from way back.
We were kids, yeah.
Yeah, we were kids.
Really?
Yeah, man. We're just talking I think I met Adam the first time. I think it was 95, 96, somewhere around there.
Yeah.
At Sticky Fingers.
Yeah, even.
Yeah. So Baltimore, yeah. And I've played in the Prostitutes, and then currently the Trouble Seekers. And that's about it. That's all that comes to mind. And I've done writing and shit like that in the past, like record reviews, interviews, stuff like that. But nothing as of late.
Cool.
Go ahead, Adam.
I'm Adam Turkel, Adam T, a lot of people call me. I was in a teenage glam punk band called The Beatings back in the 90s on Plato. Worked at American Punk Records with Rudy from Jackpot. This is where I met Kevin back in the day in Baltimore. And I've been a pop artist and a concert poster artist and rock and roll artist for 20 plus years down here in St. Petersburg. And my current project is the new Brutarians. And we have a new album out on Alien Snatch Records in Berlin. And a single and an album coming out on Sue Records at the end of this year and early 2023. So
awesome.
Wow.
Here.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'm Daniel. I'm a Capricorn. I also have a record coming out on Alien Snatch.
Oh, sweet.
Oh, nice.
A guy who runs it, his name is also Daniel. Coming out September 9th. I play Moral Panic. I like
cool. Okay.
everyone's band here, and I like Jay and Josh a lot. And here I am.
Awesome.
Seeing as you guys are speaking about the 90s, I guess I probably should mention I played in the band back then called the Black Halos as well. And
yeah.
So
That's
only
awesome.
on one release with the Black Halos, but we were over in your neck of the woods a bunch.
Were you in the Black Halos when you played at the Auto Bar back in like the late 90s in Baltimore? Did you do that tour?
Yeah, well, on that tour I was probably roadieing, so I was probably just driving on that tour. But yes, I was in Baltimore several times.
Right on, cool. Well, I saw Black Halos definitely a couple times in Baltimore on first album, maybe the early second, when the second album just came out, maybe. So you probably along the lines.
We might have spoken at the merch table or something.
Probably. Cool, man.
Wow, that's crazy. So if you guys, what we thought maybe we would do just to keep it like kind of organized, like we thought maybe we would go like alphabetical order by first name. So we can do like Adam, CC, Daniel, Kevin, and then you guys will all give you like your number 5 pick. Like CC will give us number 5, or Adam will give us number 5. CC will give us number 5. Daniel gives number 5, and then we'll do 4s and 3s and then 2s and then end with 1s. And we don't expect you guys to just like rattle off the name. I mean, if of course you guys can, and then we don't really have like a huge time restraint in this one. And it's like 25th episode, so
24 hours.
Well, yeah, why not? We can do like a 12-parter.
You need to say.
Yeah. So yeah, if you guys want to talk about like how you heard it, how who introduced it to you, a little bit of background about the record, and that would be awesome.
And maybe
Cool.
How did it change your life?
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course.
Since albums that changed your life.
Yeah. And thanks again, Daniel, for stepping in such short. I just contacted Daniel like last night, and Daniel's like, yes. So thank you for that.
Thanks for thinking of me. I'm stoked.
Thanks. Of course. We're becoming hair twins, kind of. All right, man. Well, if you want to go ahead and start us off.
Okay. Well, I'll preface this conversation by saying, fucking Stooges, MC5, Dolls, Velvet Underground, Sex Pistols, Clash, Lou Reed, Bob Dylan, Leonard Cohen. There's been books written about all of those guys. You don't need me to sit here and wax poetic and tell you how great the fucking Clash are. So I'm going to skip out on maybe the most obvious choices that would be my favorite albums of all time. And if they're on your list, I'm going to talk to you about them if that's what we're going to do. Those are it. Dead Boys, Ramones, all the main ones that if you are into punk rock music and if you're listening to this podcast, I'm guessing you don't need me to talk about it. So I'm going a little deeper, a little obscure, maybe shit that's not as punk, but I'm trying to keep stuff that is punk-ish. So we're not going off the rails. Like I do have some 10cc and Marillion records here, but I probably won't talk about them right now because how
10cc
you guys on to that if you're not even at another point yet. So I don't know. I'm going to start with the punk record from the 90s. I started giving myself all kinds of like little things like, is it stuff that I should have bought as it was new, so I can really give you the experience? But I don't know if that's the case. I just grabbed some shit off my shelf when I came here. It could change tomorrow, but these are 5 albums that definitely had an influence on me that maybe not everyone heard. And I will start in the 90s with a band called Smash, that were probably considered one of the first new wave bands, and they kind of kicked off Britpop, in my opinion, and were punk in a different way than, say, the Manic Street Preachers were coming out of England. Though the Manic Street Preachers definitely prefaced Smash and These Animal Men, like the bands that came out at that era. But Ed, the singer Smash, who's become a friend of mine over the years, really fucking underrated songwriter, amazing lyricist. The first 12-inch, which was just like a compilation of the first few singles, Real Surreal, Lady Love Your Cunt, and Drugs Again. Man, Lady Love Your Cunt, one of the greatest feminist anthems to ever make it to the top like 40 and Top of the Pops. They made them play the B-side, shame, because they couldn't play Lady Love Your Cunt on Top of the Pops. But fucking what a tune. If you haven't heard it, I suggest you check it out. On the CD version of their only full-length like album from their prime called Self-Abused, which is a motherfucker of a record. I saw them play the 930 Club as a trio, the original 930 Club in DC, on their first American tour as a 3-piece. To this day, the most powerful 3-piece band I've ever seen. So I'm going with Smash Self-Abused. Number 5.
Nice.
Good pick. All right, Cece, number 5 on your list, albums that changed your life.
I was the same as Adam, actually, in the way that I found it very difficult to pick these records, because I was looking for more like, I was going through all of my records last night, actually, and listening to them. And anyways, a lot of stuff that I think is really cool can't really be on the list because I didn't know if they really fit that sort of description of being life-changing. But anyways, I went chronologically on mine, so I'll start from the beginning. And my first album is AC/DC Dirty Deeds. And I mentioned that one because it was the first album that was given to me as a gift, actually, by my older cousin Bart, who was kind of a rock and roll dude. And yeah, at the time, I think it was maybe 5 years old, 6 years old, something like that, when I got that record. And it was the first album I ever owned. And so I listened to it top to bottom over and over. And obviously, when you're 6 years old, Big Balls is your favorite song. So that was my favorite song on the album. But yeah, I don't know. Great. I still love that album. I think Problem Child is probably my favorite song on it now. But yeah, that's my number 1.
Nice.
Great. Daniel, what do you got?
Oh man, this is so hard. This really is so hard. I've been thinking about it since you messaged me at like 9 p.m. last night. It's tough. Like I like so much music, but I'm just like trying to think of what like number 1 life-changing record to me, I think, and this is probably from like skateboarding videos. It's got to be Adolescence. For sure. Like I grew up in Los Angeles. I could see Orange County when I'd be in my yard. Yeah, it's definitely Adolescence. Like everything they did while they were actually the Adolescents was pretty life-changing. And I got to see them a lot, when they had kind of reformed with the original lineup. Casey Royer playing drums is horrible, but yeah, I mean, Adolescence, definitely. Yeah. Blue Album.
Nice.
Every song. Done.
Yeah, great album.
Yeah.
I got to see, if we're talking about bands really quick, right before the pandemic, we had a backyard party down here in St. Pete that they asked me to design the poster for the Radolescents. And it was Casey, it was Rick, Frank Agnew was singing. But
How was
they
that?
came and played this backyard party, and there was like 10 opening bands that were booked to play this thing. And it was like a Monday night. By the time the Radolescents came on, there was 5 people still in the backyard, and they played the whole Blue album. And
Nice.
with the subtitles, American Society. It was amazing. And when they played when they were going into the Blue album stuff, some girl that was there, of the 4 people left, got excited and threw an empty beer can at Rick Agnew. And he stormed off in a tizzy and left the stage. And all 4 of us had a cheer, Rick, 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 Rick. And he came out off of his bus to 4 people at 1 o'clock in the morning off the backyard, under this little stage in the backyard. And we all cheered like it was at like Wembley Stadium.
Yeah.
Finished the fucking set and ripped it up. But it was one of the most bizarre things I ever saw, and great. And,
that sounds amazing.
It was amazing. Yeah. We got to have a private airing of the Blue album at 1 o'clock in the morning.
And he's such an amazing guitar player too. Rick, just to see him play, it's phenomenal.
In front of him. The first Christian alone, is amazing.
Yeah. One of my favorite guitar players. Very underrated, if you ask me.
No doubt.
He's fantastic. He's just a nut. I mean,
the best way to be.
Tour with him, like, Steve Soto's dead. Everyone else is alive, and they're like touring with everyone but all right, adolescents. Sorry.
That's
Kevin.
gotta be
sorry,
the
go ahead.
most, like, that's got to be, in my mind, the definitive, like, Southern California punk.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that's Rick's guitar playing. That sound to me is California punk rock, like his use of octaves and just, the types of like guitar melody lines he introduced back then, and to me, it's very, like the first 2, like Ultravox albums. It's totally like a continuation of like that style, like that glam influence. And,
it's very surfy too. That the Adolescents definitely brought on that surf edge, and that skate. That the Germs didn't have. Like, to me, the Germs is the definitive. GI is the definitive California punk record. Like, LA punk.
It's one of them. It's one of them. As a Californian, it's one of them.
It's the first, at least.
To me, Adolescents, it's like suburban angst. Just they're so angry, and I love it. It's so great. Germs are great.
Daniel, where did you grow up? Because I know that Kevin grew up in Pennsylvania. CC said he grew up in Canada.
I grew up in Santa Monica, California.
Okay, so you're that's great. I mean, we almost have different edges of the everything. I love the California punk culture. I was out in LA playing last summer, and it's just like, it's so much different than the East Coast, and more laid back.
I live in New York now. I live in New York. I've been living in New York for 11 years. But I grew up in LA, and I love LA, and I love music. But I escaped.
I grew up in, such East Coast, spending time in New York, and everyone was always like, "Oh, you're gonna hate LA. You're gonna hate LA." I think they were just trying to keep me out of LA for some reason. Because once I got there, I was like, "Why did I wait so long to get to fucking LA? This is my place." I think, LA's New York hardened me, as I think, as a youth.
I mean, I love New York, but LA is fantastic.
Yeah, I was out there in Long Beach. I lived there for 9 years, and I kind of like met the same opposition. You're going to hate it out there and all that. And I still talk to stay in touch with so many friends from there, obviously. And it was great. It was great, but it's like a totally different planet than from the East Coast. It's like night and day. It's 2 different things.
Kevin, I have a bone to pick with you.
What's that?
Already?
A million years ago, one of my first bands, Dead Ringers, had a show at Mr. T's Bowl, and the prostitutes were gonna play.
I knew this was gonna come back to haunt me, man. I was just talking to someone about this the other week.
Like an hour before we were gonna play.
Yeah.
And my dad was like the only person in attendance.
Oh
Wait,
man,
It was a rough
Where
shift.
was Mr. T's bowl?
Yeah, Mr. T's bowl.
Where
yeah,
was it?
Mr. T's. I remember that. Yeah. Yeah, we were supposed to do that. That was a bad time for me. We had like a bunch of dates lined up, and I think, and we had some. I think that was with Sammy Town, his band, The Disciples, at the time. Were supposed to join up with us, but we were having like all these lineup changes, and some of my habits were a little out of control. So we did the first show, and we just. I think that was in San Diego, and I ended up staying there for a week, and the rest of the shows didn't happen. So that's why we didn't play. It was nothing personal, but yeah, that was.
No, I didn't think it was, but I had to bust your balls a little.
Yeah, it was bad how it went down. Then when I came to, I'm like, oh shit, man! Like, I wonder if people are pissed at me, and they're like, oh yeah, we're more than pissed. It's just like, I remember that though, I really thought we were gonna make it, but at that point in time, man, if we had like shows lined up that were consecutive, you were lucky if I was there like for the second show in a row, because I would disappear and just not come back, and people wouldn't be able to find me. That was like the norm. But yeah, that sucks. I remember. Were we like? Was I like talking to you like with the shows? Were we like in communication with that with the Mr. T's bowl? I think I remember talking to you.
It was you and
MySpace.
Yeah.
Yeah, MySpace days. Yeah, I remember that, and I was really stoked for it. I was really excited, and man, I just went MIA.
On MySpace, and it was just a complete disaster. Like every show after it was, show was like, stop playing music, stop playing music. Like it was
because of people like me. Yeah.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't like you. It was just so disheartening. But for some reason, still playing music.
Well, that's awesome, man. You stuck with it. Yeah, it seemed like in like MySpace those days, like you could like book a world tour on there, like it was exciting. That's how I found my way to California. I got like a paid flight out there and just kind of like went with it. Like I just try to maximize it as much as possible when, social media took off, and just crashed with people and ended up there. It's kind of crazy. But it was fun. It was fun. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. All right, sorry, Kevin. I had to bust your balls on that.
No, I had it coming. That's the first time anyone's brought that up, like since then. And it's so funny because I was thinking about the other week, and I was like, man, the band we're supposed to play with, man, I bet they were pissed. I never heard anything from them. Or if they did, like I deleted like my account because I didn't want to read like the pissed off messages. So, But yeah, sorry about that, man.
Now that show was like we had 12 shows booked, and that was like the 11th one, and the shows had not been good, and that was like my hometown show, and you guys canceled, another band canceled, and then literally it was just my dad.
Oh shit!
Like that's the only person that showed up.
It was, we could have done it at home, and then it really could have been.
Yeah, that was always my take when I would just be such a fucking flake back then. I'd like, man, no one's gonna be there anyway, so what does it matter?
No, you were right. No one showed up. It was tough.
Oh man, I'm sorry. That sucks.
No,
yeah, that's.
Don't be sorry. It was character building.
Yeah. Man, nice. Yeah, that was fun. So am I up on?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Okay.
Number 5 selection.
Number 5, I guess. Yeah, like how I picked mine. I guess albums that stuck with me. To this day, just kind of, that kind of, had some like serious impact or changed my perspective in some way or another. And there's like no particular order to them. It's not like a ranking for me. But for number 5, I'm going to go with Prince, 1999. And for me, I was either like 9 or 10. And I had heard 1999. It was like on one of those weekly video shows. Like some of my friends had MTV. My parents wouldn't pay for cable, so I had to wait until like every Friday or Saturday to catch what was hot. And I saw that video, and I just thought it was like the greatest thing ever. And it was just, I don't know, there was something really like just mysterious about it, and it just had this very seedy vibe. And so at the time, most of my record collection consisted of stuff that was in the bargain bin, things like that. So if I wanted to hear something new, I had to kind of like trade. I think it was trading tapes at the time. And my friend had the 1999 cassette, and he's like, "Oh man, I don't like it. Like it's like 90 minutes long. It's weird." And I had it was like this cassette. I think it was like out of Holland. It was like a Def Leppard, and it was like their demos. It was called First Strike, and I had this cassette. Yeah, and I was into Pyromania at the time, but I hated like that rough production because I was into that. I guess I still am, like that 80s kind of compressed drum sound. So I traded the Def Leppard for the Prince, and I was like, man, I really got one over on him. And because I heard it, man, I just couldn't get enough. It was just kind of like this, I don't know, man, like apocalyptic, sensual, and the sound of the guitar, the sound of the synth, and just the melodies and everything I was hearing on there, it just kind of like hit me in a way nothing else did. It was just really like unique. And one of those things, like when I heard it, I was like, man, I really got to find out or figure out a way to learn how to play guitar. Like I need to be in a band, at that young of an age. So it really just spoke to me. And then I guess it spoke to my libido, too. Even though I was young, I was one of those kids, like supercharged libido, like 8 years old. And, and just like the sexual nature of the songs, everything about it just had this kind of like risque, taboo sound to it. And I just thought it was the coolest fucking thing ever. And, when I heard a song like, Let's Pretend We're Married, or All the Critics Love You in New York, like I just had to kind of keep listening over and over. It was just kind of like put me in a trance, and it rocked. And obviously so many great songs on there. And I still think, Little Red Corvette to this day is like one of the greatest songs ever written. And it's something, I just put on last night. It still sounds fresh to me. It still sounds new. And it just made the end of the world seem very, appealing, just the way it presented it. And I really dug that about it. Just kind of like this, sensual doom, euphoric doom, something like that.
Almost like the Black London Calling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was kind of like coming off of Controversy and coming off of Dirty Mind. He had come out of the R&B thing. He had joined the new wave, and this was different than just like the new wave. 1999 was the first Prince album that was like the first real Prince record, in my opinion. It was like not him kind of skirting with genres and dancing around the different shit. That was him kind of like Controversy probably was the first one that he could say like, that's a Prince record. Dirty Mind, definitely. But 1999 was just kind of like the fucking like artistic statement before the big blow up, and grooves like London Calling in different ways. But it's not pandering to genres. It's fucking pandering to becoming Prince,
Yeah, and that's what I love about it, man. There's just like something about it. It just speaks to you on like so many different levels, and it's like he found his voice. I mean, he had it before that, but like I don't know, man. Like he really, really like found his inner mojo, like on that one, and it destroys, everything else to this day. I think so. And obviously, I mean, there's a reason that guy was, he's as famous as he is. But
and that fucking purple coat was $1 million, dude.
Yeah, right on, man. Yeah, it's just fucking awesome. So yeah, that just blew my mind, and it blows my mind to this day. And the whole thing's like a one-man show, and it's unique. It's his own sound, and it just I don't know. It's just it had a huge influence on me, and still does. And nothing compares to it.
Of, really R&B crossing over so the white mainstream through MTV in such a huge way. It's like all of us sitting here on this panel. It's interesting because we're all pretty much in the same age group, I would imagine. And we're really the first generation where that Daniel might be a little younger, but the first generation of like where we weren't like as genre specific. We were like the MTV generation. So like, like Johnny Whitmer was talking about on their podcast, listen to Johnny's thing. And he was just like, when I saw Duran Duran and I saw Adam Ant, I was like, what the fuck is this? I want to be that. And Prince was such a big part of that. Def Leppard was such a big part of that. It like you saw for the first time that like Deep Purple and Rainbow look like shit, but all these other people, like, it doesn't matter what kind of genre you are. Like you could apply, like the visual became such an important thing to us. And now kids, you know, still when we were growing up and we were teens, if you saw a girl in a pair of Chucks, you knew she was cool. She was probably going to be your girlfriend, or you're going to try to make her be your girlfriend. Yeah. Now, you know, you can see a girl with purple hair, fucking fishnets, the eye makeup, creepers, whatever, and they don't know what punk rock is or rock and roll or whatever.
Or even Prince.
Or Prince, but they're free to dress that way, and they might have they might listen to everything. And like you know, it's great that it's like that now. It's like they don't have, you know, you don't have to be genre specific, you know, and that Prince was a big reason that was all broken down, I think.
Yeah, that's cool how you describe it, because it's almost like its own sound, that early MTV generation. Like you could, I don't know, there's just a vibe that they all seem to share, whether it's Adam Ant or Prince or
like
Duran Duran.
Earring Twilight Zone merged so effortlessly into Prince, so effortlessly into Men at Work, and all vibes. You know, is it meant?
I love it.
That's how it was presented to us. I don't know, but there's something about that sound and that drum compression, like you said. That's like,
I love it. I love it. I still love it. It just sounded so like bright and like new and fresh. And if you were listening to like a Rainbow record, let's say from like 78, to me at that point in time, it sounded murky and it sounded old. Like that was someone else's music.
Kind of thing.
Muddy. And I didn't care for it. And you know, the 80s, it's compressed, it's fresh, and everything sounds bright. Cocaine, hell of a drug.
Right. Put a little glitter on everything.
Exactly. Just the way it should be. A little bit of spark.
All right, you guys, you want to start round 4 with
Adam.
I'm gonna go with Plasmatics, New Hope for the Wretched, which this is my original copy that I got from my uncle when I was like 8, and I told you, Josh, before, what a big influence my uncle's record collection was on me as a little kid. I was fortunate enough to start out with a lot of the problems of life solved for me of rock and roll. Like I was handed the keys to the kingdom with Ziggy Stardust, Alice Cooper Killers, Love It to Death. First 2 Black Sabbath records, but all the Bowies, the early Velvet Underground. And the early days of punk, this would have been like 81. I was like 6, 7 years old. I got London Calling. I got the first Ramones album. And I got fucking Plasmatics, New Hope for the Wretched. And New Hope for the Wretched, I don't know if you can see the cover, but you all probably know. Ricky Stocks in a fucking tutu in a life preserver with the Cadillac in the pool, and Wendy just looking like from a different planet. And you know, Blondie was huge at the time. Berlin was huge. Missing Persons. That's what I was expecting when I put on New Hope for the Wretched, and it sounded the way that it did. You know, if the Clash were punk rock, then what the fuck were if London Calling was punk rock, what the fuck was the Plasmatics? You know what I mean? Like, I already loved Alice Cooper. I already loved Kiss. When I saw the Plasmatics and I heard the Plasmatics, it blew my mind. And I don't think that they get enough credit in the history of punk rock. I don't think that you know, Rod Swanson, who was the kind of the Svengali, the mastermind behind the Plasmatics, he was kind of the Warhol of the Plasmatics. And he was like a Times Square, New York porno Jewish guy who was in the porno business who found Wendy, and they jumped on the punk rock bandwagon and started doing punk shows in 78, 79 together. And they were kind of going off what they thought punk rock was, but punk rock was so nothing yet. It was so formative that they kind of just did what they thought they needed to do. And if you listen to them, they were hot players. The band was super tight. After the first couple of singles, and by the time of New Hope for the Wretched, Jean Beauvois on bass, who's a fucking monster. Band's great. Hit after hit on this record too. I got my Secret Service member insert. I got to meet Jean Beauvois a couple of years ago when I was doing some artwork for Alice Cooper at Ruth Eckerd Hall, and I saw him from like a mile away in the lobby of the concert building and in the theater, and he still looks fucking great. Big white mohawk, fancy outfits of the denims like Paul Stanley, and just looks
nice.
great. You see him, and we locked eyes like TV commercial. I outstretched my arms, he outstretched his arms. I ran into Jean Beauvois' arms and hugged the guy. And I was like, man, lifelong Secret Service member right here. I'm like, I'm a lifelong punk. I can't tell you how much the Plasmatics need to be. And he's just looking at me, he's like, yeah, dude, I can tell. But he was so cool. And we were talking, and I just told him, like, you know, the world was not ready for Wendy O. Williams. She was just like a force of nature that was beyond, the world was not ready for her. She was a hurricane on stage. She was a badass. And there's a great interview with Richie Stotts on one of the recent Lydia Lunch podcasts. And I love Lydia too. And I love Teenage Jesus and the Jerks Orphans 45s, one of the big punk 45s for me as a kid too. But I get pissed off that she was almost dismissive to Richie Stotts about the Plasmatics' importance in punk. She kind of just downplayed him like, oh, it was a fucking joke. It was Twisted Sister. It was blah, blah, blah. But Wendy O. Williams to go out on the stage with her tits out, wielding a chainsaw, smashing TVs,
badass,
smashing corporate ideals, and laying down songs one after another, like Monkey Suit, Test Tube Babies, Squirm, Want You Baby, covers a Dream Lover, Butcher Baby. And the second album is as good as the first, Beyond the Valley in 1984, with Fast Food Service. Can't recommend the Plasmatics enough. And if you can find the bootleg videos or the DVDs with the Tom Snyder appearances, Richie Stotts with a flying V in a tutu, opening the chords, I think they're playing Butcher Baby. And he comes through the crowd over like 60-year-old men in suits, balding, there on their lunch breaks watching Tom Snyder. And in his tutu with his flying V, just falls over a crowd of people, smashing these old guys in their head with their flying V. If he's missing a chord, you can't tell because it's feedback fury. And they get up on stage. Wendy's in a schoolgirl outfit with her fucking mohawk. They're smashing shit up. That's punk rock. And Lydia Lunch, I love you, Lydia. You're punk as shit, but you ain't as punk as Wendy O. Williams. And that's New Hope for the Wretched.
Nice.
That's my number 4.
Yeah.
All right, CC, you're up.
Man, I don't know. I feel like my descriptions are way too short.
I'm sorry. I'm passionate about my record, so I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'll wrap it up.
No, it's cool. I like it. My number 2, or I don't know which way we're going, but anyways, I was going chronologically. So
4. You could go 4. Well, whatever.
4.
We were just gonna count down.
Yeah,
to
order
1.
doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to go by age. So the next sort of phase in albums, stuff that changed. Anyways, Go-Go's, Beauty and the Beat. Probably, maybe I was 7, 8-ish, kind of around there. You know what? That one stood out for me because it was the first sort of music that I'd heard on my own. I'm an only child, and my parents were, they were into country music, and then like kind of good country music, at least, thankfully. But I didn't hear any really rock and roll growing up. So to me, that was one of the first things that I heard that really moved me. And it was We Got the Beat, which is the first sort of punky sort of sounding thing that I'd ever heard.
It's a great song.
It was on Fast Times at Ridgemont High, which at the time I wasn't actually allowed to watch it because it was an R-rated movie. And somehow we were at a hotel room or something. We were near Disneyland, and the movie came on TV, and I got to watch the first 20 minutes of it. And of course, there's that scene in the mall when We Got the Beat comes on, and it's pretty amazing. And so, yeah, for me, it's that song and that album is a huge one, just in the way it was a turning point where I started listening to my own music, and I wanted to buy albums of music that I liked and stuff that turned me on.
Cool.
It's awesome.
Great record.
Yeah, amazing record.
That's it.
All right. Daniel's up.
All right, I'm keeping it Southern Californian. The TSOL EP definitely changed my life. I found out about chorus pedals and just goth music. I've seen TSOLs probably. I think it's like the band I've seen the most ever. I've seen TSOL maybe 30 times, but
Wow.
you know, that TSOL, not the Return of the Living Dead heavy metal TSOL.
They were great though too. So we should talk about them for a second too.
They were
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
They were.
I agree.
Because they get the shaft, and Jack was great for the few records he was on, but the second level TSOL is what made the name of the band TSOL outside of California. No doubt.
Revenge is a killer album. Revenge.
is
I think that's I think that's their best record. Their best record's Revenge. I've always thought.
I would say that's though I love Beneath the Shadows also, which was the great transition, you know.
Yeah.
Beneath the Shadows definitely I think the Jack's masterpiece for TSOL.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think Beneath the Shadows is a very underlooked special record where they kind of a bunch of jocks from Orange County, you know, putting on makeup, playing goth.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that EP.
And that's the Rick Agnew influence back to Rick Agnew, I think, too, right? It's got
100%.
Yeah.
You know,
Without a doubt.
And then Ron Emery, very underrated guitar player. Like those spidery guitar lines he comes up with. I mean, just very underrated player, man. Like he's right. Yeah, he's right up there with Rick Agnew. You know,
man. And if I'm talking too much, just tell me to shut the fuck up. I am totally cool. But
You're fine.
I sat in front of Ron Emery 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago.
Oh wow.
You know, I've seen TSOL like you, Daniel, countless times over the years. They're one of my favorite punk bands too. That, you know, they usually slip my head too, because it's almost like they're such a given. They're like a Cheap Trick or somebody that you've seen so many times that you take them for granted almost, and you can't say enough about them. But anyway, they played a shitty heavy metal club in the swamps of Tampa. They were rolling through like a 4-date Florida tour, so we drove out to see them, and it was the first time that I was able to get close enough to them without the fear of getting like an elbow in the head or a beer bottle in the ribs. Because everyone's so old, even if they're thrashing around at this point, they're winded, you know?
Yeah.
After a song. So I went right up front and I just stood in front of Ron Emery, and it was a stripped down, no keyboard version of TSOL. And just to watch Ron Emery and it was mostly the early stuff. It was the Dance With Me album, the EP, Weathered Statues, and then some stuff from like the 90s albums, Fuck You Tough Guy, and those things sprinkled in, which were great. I think Wash Away was the only Beneath the Shadows song they played. But just to watch that guy play, there's such a massive force. And
he's fantastic. He is really just a phenomenal songwriter and guitar player. I think,
yeah, I agree. Yeah,
a big part of that kind of Southern California soft boy sound. That's what I want to call it, because they have all these there's like neo-Nazis and football players beating each other up, but then it's like dudes in makeup playing weird songs. And,
But you gotta remember, but like the time Change Today came out and Revenge, it was very much in tune with the times. It was not a radical departure of shit. You know what I mean? If you liked the Cult, you liked TSOL. If you liked You know what I mean? Like, even if you,
Yeah.
like, and when the guy from Guns N' Roses wore the TSOL shirt in his video too, that was later, and that's when it kind of went hair
Yeah, that
metal.
was
Like,
huge. That was totally huge.
Yeah.
but
Like anyone I knew into, like, you know, let's say they were into the DKs at that period in time, or like Minor Threat, Black Flag, you know, all those bands. I mean, they had the Cult Electric, you know, and
totally.
thought it was great too. So I thought it was a really cool time period, actually. I like the crossover, and, you know, it was cool. I wish I know people have like attempted to recreate that sound, but I think it was very specific to the time, you know?
Oh, yeah.
And, you know,
Like, it was great.
equipment has so much to do with it, and those
Yeah.
sounds at the time. Like, you know, it's like the way those
100%.
records sound. You can't produce a lot of it. Like all of the Plauto stuff and the stuff like that came out in the 90s, all that 90s punk, it sounds 90s no matter what, because it was all recorded on like DAT tape. And even if you like recorded it on analog, it would wind up on a DAT tape and it would get
at some point.
And it just all has that sound. Like none of it has like any specific dirt on it. Like, and when you tried to make dirt, it was always through like feedback on amps or not. Like it was just always very clean sounding and but loud and like in the red and just pushed up like weird.
Yeah,
you can tell.
Yeah, I never thought about it that way, but yeah, the 90s definitely had that sound, and yeah, it was like bands trying to recreate the sounds they kind of grew up with, but that DAT tape just kind of like was, I don't know, like a buzzkill. Like, I know what you're talking about.
And the influence of just what was going on at that time was so huge. It was almost just like automatically in, like, even though you didn't want to, even if it, you know, that 90s alternative sound, you know, even if you wrote the songs in major chords, by the time you gave it to the guitar player, it would have some of that shit in it. You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, Kevin, I think you're up, man.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So for my number 4, I'm going with Johnny Thunder's Stations of the Cross, and I believe that came out, what, 87, somewhere around there. So I think around the same time period we're talking about.
On tape first.
Yeah, it was on tape, and it was like a blue cassette. On Roar, I think. Yeah. Now that was the first time I'd already, you know, heard the Dolls at that point. I loved it. But that was the first Johnny Thunders I was exposed to, because as I got like into the Dolls, older people that I knew that would like tape me stuff or make me tapes were like, dude, you gotta check out Johnny Thunders, man. It's something else. You're really gonna dig it. And so that was like just what happened to be like available at the record store, you know, at the time. And that just really opened my eyes. It's not the fact that it's not like Live at Leeds or something like that. It's like the antithesis of that, I guess. And that's what appealed to me about it. That's the first time I learned about, baiting your audience. You can go on stage and just like play a song and then halfway through be like, fuck it, I'm not completing it. And I thought that was the coolest fucking thing I ever heard. Because and I was kind of starting to learn bass at that point. So when I heard this record, I'm like, I can be a musician. Like, this is something I can do. And just the atmosphere of that record. It's just, I don't know. Once again, it has like a very seedy vibe to it. And it's just very decadent. And he just wore like his heartbreak on his sleeve. And that appealed to me. You don't have to be like this, macho tough guy. It's not like I ever that was nothing I ever aspired to be. But, you could go on stage, warts and all, and still his voice sounded, amazing on that recording. And the songs where he did decide to play them the whole way through, some of those are great. So I was in love with, In Cold Blood was on there. And I just thought that was so cool. That was one of the first songs, on my own, I was able to, figure out on bass. And I was like, holy shit, I can join a band now. I can do this. So that's why it was so influential, in my world. And, but, it's one of those things. It was just kind of like a personal experience, or I don't know, I was enlightened, I guess, at that point. But, technically it's not like this great record. And that's what I love about it, that you can just be a completely beyond flawed human being, hit the stage, let the world, know your heartbreak, your anger, what you're pissed off about, you can hate your audience and still get up there and keep going. That was the lesson I learned. That was my takeaway,
The importance of Johnny can never be overstated. And I prefaced this whole conversation by saying there's been rooks, people would expect me to come on and ramble all day about Johnny Thunders. You can't say enough about Johnny Thunders. And I love your choice because that to me was the era that I fell in love with him too. And I love that 80s era. Johnny is my favorite.
I do too.
I love him when there's the art of falling apart, that it's the teetering on that line, which is what made him the legend that he is. And if you were around, and it's become such a legend and it's become such a joke, and it's real easy to say, oh, he was a junkie and he was this. But you nailed it. You hit the nail on the head. It was seedy and it was junky and it was dark and it was fucking cool to the point where it was like, did you want to go there? Did you want to dabble there? And when you met somebody who knew what you were talking about, who were into it, you had an instant friend. And the Johnny Thunders cultum and fan base and the people, if you knew Johnny Thunders, I don't know if we connected because of Johnny Thunders, but it's possible.
I'm sure. Yeah.
That's, if you met somebody that was into Johnny Thunders, that was, you became
friends for life. Yeah.
You that you knew that you were one of them, I've never owned a Bad Religion record. I couldn't tell you one Descendant song. I tried to watch that documentary after talking to you. I fucking hate it.
Awesome.
I couldn't listen to it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's fucking cool, man. Yeah.
But
see, this sounds like a conversation we would have had in 95 when I met you. We would have been shit talking the Descendants, and we'd have been like, dude, I love Stations of the Cross too. And that's the beauty of Stations of the Cross. And I think you nailed it with the art of falling apart. And to me, to this day, that's kind of what all art should strive to be. On some level,
what makes the Replacements great,
great band,
and that's what makes John Coltrane great, that's what makes
a Beautiful Disaster kind of,
and really doing it, not it's not just for show, it's not a pose, it's not an act. I'm a fucking mess, but I'm going to get up here anyway.
He needed to pay the rent, but I think he also needed to fucking get up there and lay it out there. I think he was such a heavy, dark individual with so much shit going on that he would have died a lot sooner if he didn't get up there and have that outlet. It was, you could tell. I
agree.
It was living, breathing organism. It was real and it was organic, and you can't package it and you can't bottle it,
Yeah. And when I heard that, I was like, man, this club he's playing at, this world, this planet he lives on, I want to go there. This is where I want to be, I don't know why, but it speaks to me, so it's just, I don't know.
And if you can track it down, if someone's listening and they're not down with Johnny, those Lech Kowalski documentaries, the Born to Lose documentaries that came out in the 90s, there's 3 or 4 different cuts of them, and they're all fairly radically different, but they were out there floating around in bootleg circles, and I'm sure you could download them somewhere, somehow. But, the legend of Johnny Thunder has been glossed over. They really show the nitty gritty darkness.
Yeah.
It's stuff, man.
Well, and that's the appeal, he's human. So, he's relatable, he's not this perfect person. He's not trying to be a perfect person. He's not trying to tell you what to do, what you should think, it's just this is who I am. This is what I do. This is my life, man. I'm putting it out there, so.
Has anyone watched the movie about his last days in
I did.
hotel in New Orleans?
Yeah, it's
no, I haven't seen it
on Amazon.
Yeah, I watched it. It's ridiculous.
What's it called?
What is it?
I think it might be called Last Days.
Last
Days of Johnny.
It's really bad.
It's like a B movie, horror movie, and it's based loosely on the fact that he was dosed with acid. What
a way to go! What a way to go, man! Shit, yeah.
But it's a horror movie.
Yeah.
The guy playing Johnny Thunders was pretty good. It was a waste that they wasted it on that script. But the fact that there's a movie about Johnny Thunders and there's somebody invested some money in it, I had to watch it. But
no, I love that there's a movie about Johnny Thunders, but I wish it was a better movie.
Well, it's like that with a lot of the documentaries and everything. It's
sure.
People pay for what they can get the footage for and all that kind
right.
of stuff.
For sure.
But
Yeah.
you know, Johnny, you know, the interesting thing about Johnny Thunders too, we should have a Johnny Thunders anniversary death or birthday special, and we could all
That would be awesome, actually.
Yeah, we could do like a 6-hour show. Yeah.
But you know,
So much
it's
to talk
interesting, like, for
about.
guys like me and Kevin who grew up with like the Johnny Thunders template as something to kind of look at, to dumbly as something to aspire to, which I think we both did at some point or another. But having outlived Johnny Thunders at this point, and being a father that is a responsible father, as opposed to someone who's a deadbeat dad like Johnny Thunders was. Like, the things that I admired about him as a kid, I look to him still in admiration. But then you look at him as a human as you get older too, and it's like,
you were a piece of shit.
Yeah, you know, it's really interesting. It makes him, you know, the hero worship I had for Johnny Thunders as a youth is not the same as I have as an adult. That's for
he's
sure.
like, he's the perfect like anti-hero, you know. Like, I'm sure you remember this, Adam. Like growing up, if you went to like your Walden Books or I don't know, Beach Dalton, whatever booksellers were around, you'd see like what was that? Was it the East Coast Rocker? You know, and you'd go through there, and then you'd see Johnny Thunders playing in New York, and like the ad would be like, "Come and see him while he's still alive." And I'm like, "What the fuck, man?" You know, I'm like, what is the deal with this guy, man? So I was just intrigued. I was like, it's the craziest thing ever, you know? And the fact that he has
Bukowski were around for cancel culture just to see like
man,
how Johnny Thunders and how Bukowski treaded the water.
Well, at least Bukowski was a drunk.
They wouldn't have given a shit. I don't think they would have cared.
Literally
I think
with
they
like
just kind of just pulled
style
on doing their
for
thing.
heroin.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been to a couple of those shows, the Johnny Thunders memorial things in New York here. It's pretty grim. Celebrating a guy that like literally sell your best. I don't know. He's great music, not a great person.
Yeah, I remember at the time, you know, the band I was in was with my best friend at the time, and we're like 13 or 14. But you know, his uncle had been in Poison, and he was out in LA with him. He got his, I believe, he got his girlfriend pregnant, so he had to leave, and that's when CC DeVille entered the band. But his name was Matt Smith, and like he like I'm trying to think of like how I want to word this, man. Like kind of like what. I don't know. Like he's the one who introduced us. And like when I heard the Dolls, he was like, "Yeah, man, you gotta like get into like the Johnny Thunder stuff, man. Like this guy, it's you know, it's the ultimate." But at the same time, he had a new band when he came back to PA from Poison, and they had gone up to New York, and they were playing with Johnny, and Johnny tried to steal his guitar that night. And they almost had a fist fight. You know, so I learned that about him like early on, but it didn't stop me from listening, if that makes any sense, where I was going with that. You know, so I kind of knew he was a shitbag, and you know, everyone else like he's a shitbag, man. But it's Johnny, you know.
Well, you know,
just
you know,
don't let him near your shit.
Also, like such tender acoustic songs, and such you know, he would lay his heart out the line in such a sensitive way that was not, you know, something that was normally acceptable in the punk rock community. And for him to be able to do it, he's Johnny Thunders. He can do anything. And, you know, sure, he was treading lines of like, he was admiring Willie DeVille and Keith Richards and, you know, Wild Horses and Dylan and that era kind of late 70s kind of singer-songwriter stuff. But for him to bring it into the punk realm and not be the greatest technical vocalist and the least bit, hearing that in a punk rock context was a really eye-opening thing for me. Like I would say, like the "Hurt Me" album.
I love that album. I heard that. I think that was the second thing I heard after like Stations of the Cross, and it still sounded punk rock to me. And I was like, man, this is more punk rock than a Dead Kennedys album. And I don't know why. You know, obviously a very, very tortured guy, very fucked up, and you know, like a lot of you know, artists whose work I dig. You know, I'm not looking to have the guy be my best friend. I don't want him to move in with me. So, you know, I'm like that with everyone. I judge it on the art, you know, I guess.
Well, I'll tell you, Johnny Thunders acoustically hurt my ears. Like his vocals, they're pretty rough, oftentimes.
I love it. See, I love that it's out of tune, man. Like just slightly, it's like that imperfection. Like, and by being slightly out of tune, it kind of hits this natural, weird kind of like blues note. And yeah, people either really love it or really hate it. It
I feel
polarizes
like
people,
he's
and that's part of the appeal.
like turn it down, like way down. He's yelling into the microphone. Just turn it.
Oh, it's obnoxious, no doubt, no doubt. It's so obnoxious, and that's what part of the appeal, I guess.
Hey, Johnny, you just played Green Onions 4 times in a row. Can you?
Yeah. See, and I love that. I thought it was great. Like he had no idea what was going on when he was up there. He was so fucked up.
Dick Dale would play like Batman 4 times in a row, and I think sometimes Johnny knew what he was doing more than you think. Like I think there was he a lot of it was a pose too. He was not. He was a mod, and he knew how to fucking he knew how to play people, and it was a junkie who knew how to play people.
Yeah, and it was crazy. Like and then like I told you, like when I heard that story, my friend's uncle coming back, like, oh yeah, he tried to steal my guitar. He had to chase him outside and get it back. I was just intrigued even more. Like who fucking does that? Johnny Thunders, and that's all I got to say on it. Definitely. Yeah, it's something else.
He was a shitbag, but he was a shitbag that did change your life.
Exactly. There you go. So
we're gonna move to the selection number 3. So what do you got, Adam?
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. Yeah. Well, this could be higher on the list, but since we were talking about acoustic music with off-key vocals, I'll go with Nicky Sudden and Dave Cusworth's Robespierre's Velvet Basement record, which is probably one of my favorite albums of all time, if not the most influential record to me. Maybe especially on the new Brutarian stuff that I've been doing lately. I got turned on to Nicky Sudden in the 80s. I don't know how. I'm trying to remember. Maybe through my number 1 selection coming up, but I'll get to that in a minute. But being a fan of Johnny Thunders, being a big Keith Richards, Rolling Stones fan, like Jeff Drake, I could talk Rolling Stones bootlegs all day long. They're probably my favorite of all time. But you don't need to tell me. You don't need me to tell you how great the Rolling Stones are. They fill stadiums. So I'll spend my time talking about Nicky Sudden and Dave Cusworth instead. This album right here came out 1984, I think. It's funny. I just recently heard an interview with Andy McCoy saying that nobody was doing acoustic music when they did the Suicide Twins record, and there was Hurt Me, there was this that same year. So I don't know. This album is amazing. Nicky Sudden, of course, was in the Swell Maps, one of the great, first post-punk rough trade bands. Nicky and Epic were brothers from England who were talented. They formed the Swell Maps with Jalhead when they were teenagers. It was very noisy, almost fallish. Nicky went solo. He put out a couple solo records that are great, Out of Egypt and The Bible Belt. Bible Belt saw him working with Dave Cusworth for the first time, who was from Birmingham. And this album, there's not a bad cut on it. If you like anything from Crazy Horse to Beggar's Banquet, Sticky Fingers era Rolling Stones, Hurt Me era Johnny Thunders, Keith Richards' Apartment demos, Drenched in Reverb, Nicky Sudden and Dave Cusworth at this time period both went on epic runs that are reserved for the likes of Neil Young and Bob Dylan and a handful of other just big name people in my opinion. Leonard Cohen, Lou Reed. The 80s era, they both signed to Creation Records after these first initial Jacobite records and went solo. Dave Cusworth formed a band called the Bounty Hunters. Nicky kept the name the Jacobites and just continued doing solo albums. They reunited in the 90s. It had that 90s sound. It was never the same. The 80s era Nicky Sudden records, class, if you can handle off-key vocals and acoustic guitars, this is your thing. So love this. Can't recommend the Jacobites enough.
Nice.
And I used to follow him around New York like he was Woody Guthrie. You know, it's like
Oh wow.
he would show up
Yeah.
and play like gigs at Brownies and Coney Island High, and I would like hitchhike up from Baltimore and be like a 19-year-old, 20-year-old kid, and he'd be like, "You came from where to see me? Why?" Like, you know, and I could talk to him about his whole catalog and about, you know, all of his songs, and he was so blown away. Like, I'd come home from my trip, like my mom would be like, "There's a message from Nicky Sudden on your phone," and I'd be like, "What?" You know, it's like, you know, Nicky was so cool, man, and one of a kind. And I like that since he's passed away, him and his brother have gotten a lot of more recognition and reissues, and like he's kind of gotten the T-Rex campaign. There's been more posthumous releases, I think, since he's died than when he was alive. So I'm glad to see that his legend is living on and growing. So
Yeah, for sure.
Nice. So what's next on CC's chronological tour?
Yeah, I feel like I have to justify this one a little bit. Yeah, I don't want y'all to think I have a terrible record collection or anything. But anyways, I think I'm going to start out with a story about skateboarding, and skateboarding really kind of, I think, was the thing that got me into punk rock and alternative music, I guess you'd call it, right? And just sort of stuff that opened my world to a lot of other stuff. That was when I was about 12 years old. There was a kid down the street who had a skateboard and got me into it, and I got my first skateboard, which was a Mark Gonzalez, if you remember that one.
Of course.
Yeah, I just loved that board. Anyways, so the kid down the street, whose name was Rob, was really into Aha. The band Aha. So I'm using this as my sort of like, it was life-changing for me because I got into skateboarding because of the kid down the street and the Aha album, and I don't actually remember what the name of the album was, but the one with Take on Me and Sun Always Shines on TV and shit like that on it. Anyways, I don't have the album anymore. I probably wouldn't put it on, but it was a pivotal moment for me because it got me into skateboarding and the kid down the street. And I got to see them live at it was Expo 86 here, the World's Fair thing that we had in Vancouver. And I remember the guy came out on stage on a skateboard doing a handstand on the skateboard and stuff like that. And I'd never been to a concert before. And then they were like waving at the crowd, and I was like, I think he waved at me. Anyways, so not a cool story, quote unquote cool, but you know, I chose that one because for me in my life, that's where a lot of it changed. I got into totally different music. Once I started reading skateboarding magazines like Thrasher and stuff like that, I saw like ads for like bands I'd never heard of that blew my mind and stuff like that. So, you know, there you go. Aha did it.
How is the rest of that Aha record? Because that song, the single's the jam, but you know, never explored further. You know, are there any other like choice cuts?
You know, I don't know anymore. I haven't listened to it since back then.
Okay.
I found my old tape collection from when I was a kid, and I had the second album, and we listened to it on an Autogramm tour actually, and that one ended up going out the window.
But I worked at an import shop in like the 90s and long past the Aha sell-by date, but there were still Aha collectors that were buying like the CD singles, like part 1 and part 2 with the non-LP B-sides. And they call up and still order like for their Aha collection. So there was definitely like a cult of Aha that lingered on into the night.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that, The Sun Always Shines on TV would be a great Autogramm song. So maybe the next record that can be a B-side.
I think
is that a deeper cut, Josh?
That was the other big hit.
That was the follow-up. I don't think I ever even heard that.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, cool.
Thanks, Josh.
Aha's underrated.
The Sun Never Shines on TV?
Yes, that's
right.
All right,
That's the second
my
hit
playlist.
single.
Matter of fact, I think that's, well, I mean, once I got into skateboarding and I saw like stuff about bands like Adolescence and TSOL and stuff like that, I started buying that stuff. And I grew up in a small town outside of Vancouver where there was only one record store, and you'd only get like kind of like the albums from bands that were, you know, on the big label. So the only TSOL album album they had there was the Revenge album, and so that was the one that got me into TSOL. And I think what was the Agent Orange one that was kind of like their sort of sellout album or their big label one?
The blue and orange one.
Yeah, no, the one that was later. It was kind of had like a blurry picture on the front.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. I don't know the name though.
Like I'm thinking of the one that had like the smashed glass on the front of it with the
I think that's the one. I think that's the one.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page here.
But you can't underestimate what an importance like Thrasher magazine was for spreading punk rock to like mainstream white boys across like old schools. It's like
100%.
That column in the back that had all like the punk demos and and it was pretty diverse too. You would get everything from heavy metal to hip hop to early hip hop to punk and thrash.
Oh yeah.
Like, I was a skateboarder. I'm transitioned into a surfer now. I surf in New York City, believe it or not. But oh my God, I would get every Thrasher magazine and Slap magazine and Big Brother. Like I was always just kind of like, what's cool? Unfortunately, a lot of it would be like Bam Margera,
the Big Brother stuff,
metal, stuff. But a lot of it, and it's definitely reverted back. I mean, somehow, Keith Morris is like the godfather of coolness in Los Angeles. I mean, he is supreme. All those kind of cool labels, they're all like, oh, Circle Jerks are playing. Nice. Like they have, I don't know. They're trying to get him some money, which I appreciate.
Yeah. I mean, I do love Circle Jerks.
Me too. And
he's a nice dude, actually. I don't know if you ever met him, but he's
great.
Extremely nice fella.
I met him in passing, just like, hello. Yeah, he was super nice. And I love the Circle Jerks. Love them.
Totally.
Great band. I saw them about a month ago here. It was Negative Approach, 7 Seconds, and Circle Jerks. And they were
people posting about that. Yeah, man, that looked amazing.
They were great. Every band was great. They were so good.
That flag tour they did with Dukowski and
Flag.
Just Flag. Like, man, that was one of the coolest things fucking ever. It's like,
oh, I saw them.
Did you see that? It was
TSOL actually opened for them, and they were life-changing. They were so good.
Wow.
They were incredible. Like to hear those songs with Keith Morris, just like angry. And actually, Moral Panic, we played punk rock bowling in New Jersey, the one and only time they did it. We played like a terrible club show, but then the big show was like Descendants and Agnostic Front and Flag and Cox Bar. And I stood on stage right next to Bill Stevenson while he was playing drums. And I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. It was so cool.
Very good.
He was just like, why are you standing next to me? Sorry. It was so good. They were great. They're so good.
Hey, I admire that guy despite not being the world's biggest Descendants fan musically, or just not really being on my radar back then. I was a big Black Flag fan, especially those early singles and, through at least like Damaged. I've come to appreciate the later Rollins stuff as I've gotten older, but like, that Flag tour with the early songs where they were just blazing through it was just amazing. I got to design the poster for the show here, and
really,
it was cool. I did it in the Pettibon style too, so I just did it in black and white pen and ink, and I made it the scene from Heavy Metal Parking Lot where the zebra guy in the zebra shirt was telling Madonna to fuck off to the moon or whatever, and I had the lyrics to Wasted on it, like in Pettibon style. So
oh my God, I want to see that.
Yeah, that
sounds
sounds pretty
amazing.
cool.
I'll repost it on my Facebook or something later. Or I'll send it to our little group chat so you guys can see it.
That is so cool. I would like that is something that I would frame.
And then like a year later, I designed a poster for the Greg Ginn Black Flag. And that was fucking great too, in a totally different way, where you got to see Greg Ginn also play those same songs, but instead of having them be full throttle punk, which it was real loosey goosey, and you got to see him walk that tightrope of playing those songs. And as a guitar player, man, I could watch Greg Ginn play guitar all day long. You know, amazing.
Oh, he's a huge influence. But I remember seeing that tour, and in New York, it was like everyone I knew and everyone that I knew that they knew was there at that show. It was so jammed. And about 3 songs in, it was like 75% jammed. Then 2 songs in, 50% jammed.
For the flag show? Oh, for the Black Flag show.
They were bad. They were really bad.
The one that I saw had Mike Valley, the skateboarder, singing for him.
Right.
Oh, really?
And it was great. He sounded just like Rollins, and he was acting like Rollins, and the rest of the band, I don't know if it was the guys that he was playing with before when you saw them, but they were laying it in. It wasn't like it was sloppy or horrible. But Mike Valley, he was doing Rollins. He was playing Rollins that night.
That show they had Ron Rice was
But that would be cool though still, right?
well, the drummer could not play. He could not play. And he could not play. He was desperately trying to keep up, and he could not do it. And people just kept leaving, and it was
If the drummer doesn't know the songs, it's no good.
It was rough. But Greg Ginn was just like, I don't know what he was on, but I wanted it, and he was just like the whole time, just like, yeah, like playing through every song at half speed, and it's like, okay, I am going to the gym tomorrow. Gonna have a vitamin smoothie. But yeah.
Did we lose Kevin?
Yeah, he's coming back in.
We're
Oh, there
getting
he is.
him
He's
back.
back there. He's back there.
So we are up to
We're still on 4, right?
Daniel
Or 3?
selection here for number 3.
Okay. This is tough. Nils, Sell Out Young. Absolutely
Nice.
Yes, Canadian. Absolutely love it. That first time I heard that, I just blew my mind. Loved it. So raw, so earnest and awesome, and the guitar playing. Love it. Love it. Great fucking band that no one knows about. And I'm not just trying to
I know Scratches and Needles. That song, Scratches and Needles, that was them, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great song. I've never checked out their other stuff. I've heard great things, like you're saying now, but that song was phenomenal. That was on a BYO comp, one of those, and I thought it was one of the highlights easily of the compilation.
They're kind of like the I don't know, Canadian placements.
I can see that. Yeah.
Zippy.
What was the name of the song that you said was the hot one, Kevin?
Scratches and Needles. It was on someone got their head kicked in or one of those BYO comps.
Okay.
Yeah, it's on a BYO comp.
The drummer Zippy Pinhead he just died a couple of years ago actually. But he was one of the kind of people who was always him and people like Chai Pig, from SNFU. You'd always see him at every show and at every bar, and he was kind of like the life of every party. Really good dude.
Love the
That's
Nils. Love them. The way I found out about them was I went to Montreal for the first time about 8 years ago, and I went into a record store and Fountains was playing a Nils song, and I was like, wow, this song rips. I love this. And I went up to the guys like, who is this? He's like, oh, it's the Nils. Have you not heard of the Nils? He was speaking to me in French. I was like, I'm American, I'm sorry. And yeah, he introduced me to like all of it. And I was like, oh my God, I love the Nils. This shit is awesome.
Yeah, it's cool shit.
They're great. They're great. Love them.
Yeah, awesome. The Fountains, was that the band that they were on Pilato? Is that who you're referring to?
No, Fountains was one of their songs.
Oh, it's one of their songs. Okay, I was thinking. I remember Pilato had a band. I think they were called Fountains. I was thinking that you saw them and they were playing a Nils cover. Sorry.
No, different. Sorry.
Yeah, that's my fault. I got my memory wrong there.
I like that. It's obscure.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
not
cool.
sure if they're in Vancouver or not. Were they? I thought they were like in San Francisco for a while too. The Nils. I thought they were kind of a little bit sort of nomadic.
No, I think the lead singer died like in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Now, the lead singer had like a solo career, didn't he? His name's like Alex or what was the Yeah, I've heard some of that. A friend of mine, that was years ago, and it was really good. Like one of his solo records. And he's like, yeah, it's a guy from the Nils. And it was really cool what I heard. I can't remember what the name of the album was.
It's like super moody, kind of alt rock.
Yeah.
Like, I listened to punk at one point, replacement stuff. Oh my God, I sound like such an asshole now. But yeah. I know what it is. And it's great.
Yes.
Okay, that's my number 3. Please move on.
All right, Kevin. What do you got, Kevin?
Okay, number 3, I'm going with the Paper Tulips Orbital. Before I do that, back to talk about the Nils. The Pilato band wasn't called Fountains. I think they were called Statues. I just wanted to let you know that's correct that. But the Paper Tulips Orbital, believe it was 94 that came out, was on Flipside Records. And they were a 3-piece from Long Beach, California. And it's just very, best way to describe it. It's a very aggressive and jangly type of record. It has that jangly kind of sound going on with it. And there was just something about it because all the stuff I was listening to at the time was, pretty much, your punk rock 101 or, just, like Humpers kind of bands, like around that period when those guys are coming out and things are kind of going in that way. And the Paper Tulips, I kind of got into it because I was a big Flipside magazine fan, and they had put out the record. And when I heard it, I just got hooked on it. The best thing I can say is it's just one of those albums. It plays like an album. All the songs are, I'd say, pretty, equally great, but you have to kind of hear it as a whole. And I guess it had the most influence on me. It's probably more the memories connected with it. So I had one of my first apartments at that time. It was just something that, I don't know, if I was in a bad mood or, just kind of feeling moody, I could relate to. And it was just so much different from everything else I was listening to. And the songs, I don't know, it's very, everything about it's very like early 90s, and the subject matter, it's kind of like that slacker mentality. And normally that would have annoyed me at the time. But just kind of the songwriting of this band and just the way they, as being a 3-piece, they just made this really powerful sound. I thought it was great. So I guess it would kind of dip more into alternative rock territory. But for the most part, I would say that, I don't know, like their sound would be, closer to like, I don't know, the first like Mission Burma record, as opposed to like 90s alternative rock, but kind of like that kind of vibe.
What's the Paper Tulips album that's the go-to that you recommend?
Orbital is the name of the album. And it's definitely check it out, man. It's a very underrated band, and they just kind of like what
reading about them back in the Flipside days, like you said. And it's
Yeah.
just like, if you didn't find them and you didn't hunt them down, you just never got it. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah. And I don't think they have like a huge following, or even now. I mean, you can find that vinyl like on Discogs for like Orbital for like $2 on there. But it's really great stuff, and it's just I don't know. For me, I guess I was really starting to getting into like being more of a songwriter or writing my own songs at that point. And it kind of just helped me with like, I don't know, I guess trying to introduce new elements or, that you can kind of go outside the bounds of punk rock and just do something kind of moody, somber, or understated, I guess is the word I'm looking for, and make it sound like really cool and aggressive in its own way. So in that aspect, that's why it was influential. And I listen to it to this day. It's just, I don't know, one of those albums, like I just like to put it on and let it play the whole way through. And it's just kind of hypnotic. The sound of the whole thing, it's catchy, male, female vocals. And it kind of has like a deadpan kind of sound to it in the vocal department. But just a really great band and great record. And I guess I kind of put it on my list because it's one of those bands I just think people should, check out if you're looking for something different, different and unique from, let's say, the early 90s. It's like early 90s slacker garage punk, I guess is what I'd call it,
Cool.
Now that's a good genre. Like, not enough talk about that particular genre.
Yeah.
That's gonna be our next
More of that
episode.
genre.
Really.
Could be our next panel episode right there.
Yeah.
Early 90s slacker garage punk.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess that's kind of why I picked it. To me, that's like that'd be my go-to band for that quote unquote genre. It's just a really cool band, just a really great record that just never. I don't think it ever deserved like, it never got the attention it deserved.
All right. On to number 2s.
Is that back to me?
Back to you, Adam.
All right, as we're dwindling down here, I've got albums just racing through my mind that like maybe I have made the wrong decisions or maybe I've bypassed one. So, but I'm going with what I picked, and my goal is to maybe turn people on to something new that they haven't heard before, more than just really say what was super influential to me, because I have so many albums that were influential to me. Mm-hmm. So the next album I'm going to put up is a band called The Last Picture Show from Baltimore. And the album's called Pop Mutations. And this album came out in 87. They had a demo tape that was out the year before in 86. And they had one more album that came out after this called Trouble in Texas, which is also awesome. But when in 1986, a life-changing thing happened to me. A record store opened in walking distance to the apartment complex I lived in when I was 10 years old, and it was on the walk home from elementary school to my apartment, and I made that my stop every day, and they put me to work, and my life changed. And I had a record store in my family. My great aunt owned a record store in Fells Point, right where Rudy's shop was and where Reptilian Records wound up being.
Oh wow.
Kind of almost in the same block as Reptilian. When I was growing up, and it was mostly 45s, mostly top 40, and mostly like R&B and funk and soul stuff, because that was the clientele at the time. But I grew up around records a lot. But when I had the record store by me, and older men, grown-ups, pointing me in the right direction and taking a liking to me, and like giving me dialing me in on what was cool. It really was a life changer to me. And I grew up with just my mom and my sister. I was like the first generation latchkey kid. I met cool people in my neighborhood. I met the neighborhood glam rock teenager who was probably like his late teens, early 20s when I was like 10. Is my buddy Neely J, who used to take me to wrestling matches, and he looked like every month we would go to see NWA wrestling at the Baltimore Civic Center and WWE.
Oh, yeah.
So like it was the early 80s, and the Road Warriors and Ric Flair and Dusty Rhodes and Hulk Hogan.
Hell yeah.
It was awesome. And he was like stretch jeans, cowboy boots, Nikki Sixx hair, Lords of the New Church tapes in the car, smoking cigarettes.
Oh, that's awesome.
And he had just recently lost his sister. He liked having me as a little brother. He would take me around and clue me in on like, that's where I learned about Iggy and Buzzcocks and Generation X and all that awesome shit as a kid. A little bit further into my punk education. When the record store opened, singer of this band, The Last Picture Show, became a record clerk at the time. And they were one of the biggest bands in Baltimore. They got written up in like the city paper, which is like the Creative Loafing or the Village Voice of Baltimore. And they were album of the year. And, you know, Lou was the new songwriter. Lou, you can't really see how he looked like on the back of the picture, but he was always just like black hair in face, his nose sticking out. He was like a little Alice Cooper, a little Danzig vibe to him. But wrote songs like early Bruce Springsteen, and but they were new wave too, and you couldn't describe what The Last Picture Show sounded like, but they were very smart lyrically. Their flyers were all old black and white, like early Hollywood, Marlene Dietrich, Mamie Van Doren, and Lou working behind the counter, and I was like a 10-year-old kid. He talked to me like I was an adult, and they all joke about that. Me at 10 was the same as I am now, talking to me. Like I had the same opinions, and like they're just like talking to you was like talking to like one of our dudes as a kid. And they took me on as their own, and Lou turned me on to the Misfits, all those Misfits singles, and Walk Among Us for the first time. And like as a kid who loved Alice Cooper and the Misfits, I can't say enough about how awesome that was. By saying Last Picture Show, I can say about 10 bands. So he turned me on to the Pixies when that first Pixies album came out, turned me on to the Replacements. And I sing them and play out in their first, as they were getting bigger and getting to see one of their shows and realizing like what the Baltimore local scene was and what local music was. It just was like things opened up to me through this band. And I fell in love with these songs are amazing. If you can find this album, probably $10-15 on Discogs. Like songwriting on the level of the greats. And Lou could sing, like, I don't know, man. His songs are almost like 70s Elton John, you know, but with smart and hooks but live it was theatrical and Alice Coopery almost. So Last Picture Show, track down their stuff, man. It's there's rumors that the stuff's going to be reissued. Lou, the singer, who's now a accomplished author in New Orleans, who puts out books that are like studied in literature courses in New Orleans at like Tulane and stuff. He is a great artist and has remained a friend of mine. We've reconnected on social media over the years. But yeah, my first song I recorded in the studio was a cover of a Last Picture Show song. In the studio that this album was recorded with Donna from Sticky Fingers, used to work at Rudy's shop back in the day. Everyone who got these records back in the day loved them. Local bands would cover Lou's songs, and they're like a great lost band. Like to me, they were the Baltimore band of the 80s. And you know, Baltimore always lived in the shadow of New York and DC. And DC and Baltimore are they're so different, but they're so close that, you know, Baltimore was always overshadowed by those scenes. But I think because of that, we got to be a little freakier and a little weirder and a little bit more our own thing. And we didn't have to be this or we didn't have to be that. We could take all of our influences and make it our own and just fucking bring it. And Last Picture Show records, track them down. Great stuff. Really good.
That sounds awesome. What do you think's what's like a good starting song with them? Like to check them out with? Like, what would you recommend?
You know, the stuff that's up there, I have a song that I posted on my YouTube channel called Helen Ready that was never even on any record. It was just a demo that Lou sent me. And since it was never up there, I put it up. Some of our first demos are starting to pop up. There's a song called Superman, and you'll hear it's over the top. The shit's epic, you know, and it's it's real 80s production. So it's like you might have to just like put on the blockers of that 80s production and the keyboards and maybe the guitar tones a little bit, because if you weren't there, I don't know how it may translate to you if you don't have the memories and the connections. But you can't deny his voice and you can't deny the lyrics. That's for sure, dude.
I gotcha. Is there like a strong art rock influence of that? Like how you're describing it, I picture something that sounds like Romeo Void or something along those lines, or not like that?
No, more like if you took Elton John and 70s Alice Cooper, like and mixed it with I don't know. I can't even compare John Cougar Mellencamp and fucking Misfits. You know, it's like,
that's cool though. That's cool. I want to hear it. Yeah, it makes me want to hear it. Yeah,
girl backing singers, and it's so big with keyboards.
Yeah, I love shit like that. Yeah.
So yeah, it's you know, it's a kitchen sink thing, but Lou has a voice that, you know, guys like us don't have, and I wish I could sing as effortlessly as Lou can sing, and he's got a beautiful voice, and that song Helen Reddy, that's an unreleased demo. It's like the chorus? He's singing to Helen Reddy about how her greatest hits record when he was 10 years old changed his life. And
oh wow.
The chorus is help protect me from my anger, help wash away the pain. Your voice was like the rain. Help me become warm and safe again, Helen. You know, it's like he's singing to Helen Reddy. It's fucking heavy, dude. It'll bring a tear to your eye. It's amazing.
Awesome.
So I can't recommend The Last Picture Show enough. You know,
cool.
When this shit gets reissued, it'll be $100 record. You know,
I bet.
Giving you your stock tip today.
I'll pick it up. Yeah. I love stuff like that. Yeah.
All right, CC, what you got for us?
Yeah. You know, I was talking about like the skateboarding thing and how that kind of that was a big turning point in my life, I think, when I started skateboarding and getting into punk rock music and stuff like that. And I couldn't like pinpoint an album really. A lot of, you know, as kids, we traded tapes and stuff like that. And I heard a lot of stuff early on that was like, I don't know, Circle Jerks and Black Flag and Sperm Birds and all sorts of crazy shit. And back then, half of the stuff I didn't even know what the band's names were. I just like, I had a tape full of shit, right? And later on in life, you'd be like, oh, that's who that band was, because you'd hear it again. But so I chose for this one, all encompassing. I was like, okay, around the same time, I got Nevermind the Bullocks as like an album. So I kind of wanted to wrap it all up into one sort of thing. And I'm like, I think for me that was life changing because first of all, it was always usually tapes and stuff like that I had. And it was one of the first punk albums that I actually owned. And to me, it's special. Just, I don't know. There's something that album is crazy. I mean, I don't know how many layers of Steve Jones guitars are on there, but that guitar sound is insane. And Paul Cook's drumming is like some of my favorite drumming I've ever heard in the world. There's something special about it to me. I mean, those two as a duo, I love the Professionals as well. So. So that's, I mean, big influence, great album. I'm sure it's not, you know, not super original or anything like that. I'm sure it had a big influence on a lot of people, but I was trying to think of something. Well, life changing. Well, skateboarding and punk rock was life changing, and that was probably the first album that I actually owned around that time.
Doesn't
get more better than the Sex Pistols, right? It's like,
right.
I think everyone on this panel can say the Sex Pistols were life changing, and I think they continue to be life-changing to kids today, you know, and will continue to be life-changing for people forever, right? You know, it's like, as long as there's a way to listen to music.
Yeah.
You know, it's crazy when you hear, you know, people say, oh, the Sex Pistols, they weren't good. Like, you hear punk kids who maybe grew up on At the Drive-In or something. At
the Drive-In. Oh man,
fucking shit out of these people, dude. And I'm a peace-loving, you know, non-listening motherfucker. But like, you know, Sex Pistols. We should all take a minute and maybe talk about what we thought of that miniseries. I think everybody probably watched the series, the Sex Pistols series.
Loved it.
I didn't wonder. After I saw the CBGB's movie, I was like, "Fuck it, I don't want to watch anymore."
I don't blame you. I don't.
CBGB's movie is horrible.
Yeah, I haven't watched the series either, and I avoid for the same reason you just stated. That's why I avoided it. I don't even watch that much shit that comes on TV. I'm like, man, I don't. But I've heard great things about it, though. You know,
it's cool. You know,
yeah.
Like, I don't know. I watched it with my daughter so I could have like a fresh pair of eyes with it and not be the guy that's like, that never happened, or like that's a made up story or whatever.
Yeah.
And the cool thing is it just really captures the feeling of what punk rock is. And they did a great job making sure the clothes and the hair and the props were perfect, which makes it great visually.
Yeah.
But they also made the kids play their own instruments and sing the songs.
No,
Oh, that's cool. Yeah,
That's the
that's
coolest
cool.
thing about it. So when they're playing the gig, me and Lee from the Fuses were talking about it. It feels like what punk rock is, and it feels like the hundreds of gigs that we all played. You know what I mean? And they did a great job of really capturing the spirit of like what punk rock feels like, and that's what the Sex Pistols are. It's like even like when we were putting out records and we were getting to know each other in the late 90s, like 1997 was kind of our 77. And it's crazy
easily
to think that like it was only 20 years removed, and it seemed like for us when we were young 100 years ago.
Like now, something that was 5 years old back then seemed like it was ancient,
right,
like
so now like you think 2002 to 2022, like has there been any development of anything? Well, the iPad and the iPods and Spotify, the future is here and the future is great, but musically and stuff, like I don't know, it's been the death knell at the same time, the computer age, but but great, Sex Pistols. When was the first time, Josh, you heard the Sex Pistols?
That's a formative band for punk rock.
Yeah.
Like it's like I say tape because most of us were probably listening to tapes, in the 90s, the late 80s or early 90s. And now, of course, I have it on CD, which is another obsolete technology.
Yeah.
I'll still put it on in the car and
and just having sex in a band name.
Yeah.
You don't even think that.
That was very nice. Yeah.
What a big fucking deal that was, right? And like, especially when you're younger, like, you could see Plasmatics and Wendy Williams in the pool, but like you're walking home with a Sex Pistols record under your arm. It's a statement. You know what I mean?
Look at me.
Yeah.
Sex
I exactly. I had a shirt when I was 13, and just having like sex on your shirt, and the teachers getting all uptight and kids asking about it, like it was the coolest fucking thing ever, man. I totally know what you're saying. Yeah.
So everyone's assignment is to watch the show if we haven't already.
I heard Johnny talk about it, and he liked it too. I knew he would. I told him to watch it with his mom while he was in Cleveland, because it's like if you watch it with somebody that, if you can suspend your disbelief a little bit, you'll really like it, because the actors are engaging. It's good. You'll dig it.
Yeah.
Cool.
I really liked it a lot. That was good.
Yeah, I'll check it out.
I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I guess I have to too.
Yeah.
And like, as we're older now, like even if you watch Sid and Nancy, we watched it. Probably all watched Sid and Nancy on video or in the movies back in the day. We were younger, so they seemed older, and they seemed like iconic figures to us. Watching it now, played by younger kids, you realize how young they were. It's kind of a nice, good, like really shifting of the vision.
It gives you like a new perspective on it.
No doubt.
Yeah. I definitely want to at least see some of it now, because the first thing that ran through my head, like, there's going to be these, actors I don't care about. They're going to be lip syncing, and it's going to be cringy, and it's going to put me in a bad mood.
The kid who plays Malcolm McLaren is great. He looks like he's 12, which is a little silly, but he's amazing. It's really great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So
right,
Daniel, you're number 2.
It's me?
Yeah.
Yep, you're up, man.
Yeah.
Okay. For me, The Clash, Give 'Em Enough Rope.
Yeah.
That record has so much balls. It's so big. Like it's so good. I love it. It's my favorite Clash record.
The big Sandy Pearlman rock production.
Oh yeah.
I like that production. Yeah,
I do too.
Yeah, I think it sounds good. It suits them well. Yeah.
Every time I hear "Safe European Home," like I get some goosebumps. I think that is such a good song, and it sounds so good. And the breakdown at the end, like, oh my god, what a
And
Yeah.
I'm such a Mick Jones guy, and like "Stay Free" is such like a great like, harbinger of things to come. You know, from him. You know, "Stay Free" is one of his great songs anyway. But like such a great like what setting up London Calling for what like he's gonna do too. You know, really great.
Oh, Stay Free is a beautiful song. You know, and lyrically, what it's about, just someone that he's like a rock star and some guy who's, you know, a hoodlum. It's great song. Love that record.
And
Right.
you know,
Too.
think about them still, how young they were and where they came from.
Wow,
You know,
yeah.
and how they blew up bigger than the Sex Pistols. You know, well, the Sex Pistols broke up. You know, they took the reins. You know, and
Well, they played the game. I mean, they were like bidding war. Let's fucking go.
they were more committed to being on a rock and roll band. You know, for sure.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and they had 2 singers and 2 songwriters, which makes a big difference. You know,
Yeah.
in the production of quality of a band a lot of times, and the amount of energy you can keep up to. You know, it's like if you can switch off singing, man, you can play twice along of the set and keep that energy up. You know,
They have actual musical talent. I mean, the Sex Pistols, as much as I love them, they did not. They were just kind of, I don't know, circumstantial.
But you can't say that because they're the sound of punk rock. They stripped all this shit about playing good away so we could have punk rock. So you can't say that about the Sex Pistols.
Oh
you know what I mean? That's like the revisionist attitude of the Sex Pistols.
This is like
the revisionist attitude of punk, where it's like, oh, the Descendants could really play. It's like, but that's what's punk, you know? I don't know.
Sure. No. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. But the Clash, then maybe the Clash is not punk.
No, but they are though.
But they are one of the greatest rock and roll bands to ever exist.
Drug Stabbing Time's on that record. That's Drug Stabbing Time. That's a great tune.
Guns on the Roof.
Yeah, I had that in high school. I think, and we actually, my friends and I, we started smoking menthol cigarettes because of Stay Free. Yeah.
Was Pressure Drop on Give 'Em Enough Rope? I don't think so. It was just a single, right?
Right. That's not on the LP.
The same time period though. Like that's such a great error, you know.
Like, come on, Tommy Gunn. Oh my god.
Tommy Gunn. Pressure Drop was the B-side, I think, right?
Fantastic record. Move on. Come on. We still have another
round.
Yeah, so we gotta get.
Okay, yeah, you're right.
Kevin
You're right.
Now.
Okay, all right. So this is our number 2. Okay, and then for my number 2, here's what I'm picking. So in the round of the realm of punk rock, which I think this next one's one of the greatest punk rock records ever. I'm going with the Nuns, self-titled. The Nuns. I've always listened to. Well, once I get introduced to them, I started listening to them a lot more than like the Sex Pistols or the Clash, because I listened to those bands heavily. And once I got turned on to the Nuns, man, there was no looking back. I mean, just a song like Suicide Child, like I was blown away the first time I heard that. It was like the greatest thing I had ever heard, and just everything, at least with the self-titled albums, just, I don't know, everything just has like I don't know, there's a finality to it that's just really, I don't know, addictive, and it rocks on top of it, and it's so bleak, and to me it's, I don't know, it seems a little more relatable. It's kind of like just the darkness of life itself, like the Nuns just kind of encapsulate all of that. But they did, speaking of the Sex Pistols, they opened up for them, and that's like the live footage you can find online. But they went on for a long time after that. But their self-titled record, and I know some of it was pieced together, and there's some like history with it. It was only like halfway done, and then they completed the other.
The one that's on Bomb.
Yeah, it's the one that's on Bomb. Okay. And it's just phenomenal. I love them. I love her voice. Once again, you have the male, female vocals, and there's just a bleakness to it, and an ugliness to it, but it's very symphonic sounding. There's a beauty to it at the same time, and it's one of those bands, again, that like in my experience, people either seem to love them or you hate it, or it's the effect they have on people. But the Nuns are just one of the greatest bands ever in my book, especially when you're talking punk. That's the first thing that comes to mind. Like, that's how you do it. That's how it should be done. I don't know if any of you guys are Nuns fans.
What do you have first, the Nuns album or Suicide Child on the Rodney on the Rock album?
Oh, I was just going to bring it up. Suicide Child on the Rodney on the Rock. The best of Rodney on the Rock had just come out on CD. What was that, like 93, 92?
So good.
Oh,
Yeah.
And that comp's amazing. And then that was like my favorite track. All the songs on that compilation are amazing. But that song in particular, I'm like, I need to find more by this band. And then one of my friends, at that point in time, that it was kind of hard to come across. It wasn't hard. It just wasn't something you would come across at the record
on
store.
the East Coast, we didn't get the California stuff that easily.
Yeah.
We would get the comps more than we would get the albums. Like, I didn't get
Exactly.
the Nuns album until like maybe I moved down to Florida, to be honest.
Oh, wow.
With
Yeah.
To actually get the actual original vinyl copy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just you never saw them. Or if they showed up, someone would grab them and they would never turn up again,
Yeah, and I just thought, they were great. And I got that. I'd started like the Prostitutes around that time period. And I think the first time we broke up, I was actually, and I guess that's kind of what I'm doing now with the male-female vocals. I actually had ended the band. We were still in PA, and I brought in a keyboard player, and she could sing as well because I wanted to do a band like the Nuns. And it's funny, and then we kind of mess around with some demos and stuff like that, and then nothing ever came of it. And I went back to the Prostitutes, and it wouldn't be until last year I would finally be able to kind of like embark, on creating a band with stylistically similar. And but I had the idea a long time ago, and it was that first album.
I don't know if I wrote you to tell you or not how much I love those songs, but that new stuff that you put out is great. I really like
thank you,
it a whole lot.
Thank you.
I have, on my Spotify playlist, and it pops up, and I love it. And now that you say the Nuns, of course, the connection is there automatically.
Yeah.
But fuck yeah, awesome! I wanted to compliment you on how much I really love that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, and then
sure.
I'll do the quick. Yeah, our album ships out. Our debut September 28th. That's shipping out from the pressing plant. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. But yeah, the Nuns, definitely a huge influence on me. I guess the fact I'm still pursuing that kind of sound, and to this day, I have yet to hear something that tops that, or just I don't know. I guess just the bleakness and the musicality of that record is just like. It's something else. And they're like the Beethoven of punk rock or something.
Mario went on to be even more amazing as the years went by, too. It's like that last album. I don't know if you guys heard the last Mario Escovedo record, but Peter Parrott on it, and he's got a couple other James Williamson's on it.
Oh wow,
it's fucking amazing. I know I'm saying fuck too much. I'm gonna stop. I'm a teacher. I should be better. But yeah, it's really great, and some of the best songwriting, and some really great rockers. Double album, a masterpiece, really.
Wow.
Yeah, and
I want to check it out.
All country guy,
Yeah.
I'm not, that's not my route that I took, but I do appreciate good singer songwriters, and Peter Parrott showing up on it, like I'm listening. So.
Only ones. Yeah.
I can't recommend that album. It's great if you're a Nuns fan. See where he's at now, because it's really awesome.
That's cool. Yeah. So yeah, great band. If anyone out there is not familiar with them, check out the Nuns. The first record, the self-titled one, will blow your mind, or at least it should. Blows my mind to this day. And all the records I've mentioned so far, these are all records. If I play them, now in the present, like they still sound fresh, new. To me, and that's like they survive like the test of time, and they sound just as vital now, and I can relate just as much as I did back then. So to me, that's really good writing. All around.
So we are down to the final round here. Number one. So what do you got for number one, Adam?
Okay, so. We talked on one of our last podcast, our last conversation, about how much I love Tannoy Rocks. So Hanoi Rocks turned me down on a path of being a glam punk that, like, it's where my heart is to this day. You know, as deep down, if I go down the John Coltrane hole or the Leonard Cohen hole or the wormhole of Lou Reed exploration that I go on once a year, I always come back and clean my palate with, like, not the cock rock, but the glam punk. Difference for sure. So I don't want to even put them together. But being a Hanoi Rocks fan turned me on to a lot of different. It got me reading Kerrang! Magazine and got me reading the British press as a kid, and exploring, like, imports and trading bootlegs. And one of the early records that just became like a lifelong companion to me was this British compilation called Trash on Delivery. And the cover art was done by Ray Zill, who did Pandora Peroxide in the back of Kerrang! Magazine back in the day. And he was also the singer of a band called Marionette, who put out one record on Heavy Metal Records, which was the label that Wrathchild were on, and a couple other bands back in the day. I think Vibrators maybe put out a record on a subsidiary at one time. But Marionette were a great glam punk band. This comp is just chock full of gems. Marionette's My Baby Sucks Real Bad is a punk rock anthem par none. You know, and the album version, they have an album called Blonde Secrets and Brunette Bombshells, I think, or maybe it's reversed, that the versions on that aren't as punk, and these are the definitive versions. The Babysitters, Everybody Loves You When You're Dead. Of course, the Dime Store Halos ripped off that title for an album down the line, or maybe repurposed it. They may have changed the wording a little bit, but you know, Chaz has this record. The London Cowboys, Barry Jones, Steve Dior, who played with Thunders. Bad Detective, who knows whatever became of Bad Detective. This is the silent killer of the record. Favorite record, a power pop gem, as good as anything that ever came out on Stiff. It's just amazing, amazing song. The Barracudas, who were a great garage rock band, do a blistering live version of You're Gonna Miss Me by 13th Floor Elevators. The first vinyl appearance of one of my huge influences of my life and my favorite rock and roll bands, the Dogs d'Amour. This was before Tyler was even the singer of the band. Paul Hornby, not Paul Hornby, Ned Christie, who also had another name, who later became a singer, or Robert Stoddard, who was the singer in LA Guns, the first singer of LA Guns before Phil Lewis took over. He was the original singer in Dogs d'Amour in London. And they were more punky, more stoned, like really cool songs. There's early demos of those are up on YouTube. Check them out. Gary J. Lamon of the Little Roosters, I Heard the Devil is a classic. Crazy Squeeze, of course. I Need a Witness is a Little Roosters cover. That's classic. I think this was the first time I heard of Nicky Sudden. This was from his first solo record, The Bible Belt Error, the song Waiting for the Siege. So if you can track down a copy of this Trash on Delivery album, this album, the Let It Bleed album from LA, is almost like the LA counterpart to that. I would say if you're looking for glam punk, track down these two records and you're on your way. This has like Germs appearance, Pat Smears on this, but like Motorcycle Boy,
nice.
Celebrity Skin. So Hangman's not on this one yet, but it's like stuff that you would want if you're into that kind of stuff. Trash on Delivery is the British counterpart. Like, this is what you want when it comes to glam punk. So these are my big influences, and what I can recommend to you to hunt down. Your life will be possibly better because of it. And mine would definitely change.
Nice.
That's
All
awesome.
right.
Yeah.
All right, CC, what do you got for your final selection?
Final selection. All right, my chronological selection. So I went with this band called The Estranged, Portland band on Dirt Nap Records. And I chose that because it came out in 2010, and that was the year that I moved to Berlin. And
wow.
for me, that was I spent 7 years there, and I met my wife and a whole bunch of other great stuff. My life had kind of like really kind of gotten boring, and I was really unhappy in Vancouver, and so I made this big move over there and had a job and all that sort of stuff. And a friend dropped off that record to me at my new place when I moved there, and it kind of got me into new music again. And I think that I probably discovered Jay's blog, Audio Ammunition, and stuff like that around that same sort of time.
I was gonna say I interviewed them.
Did you really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there was a lull in my sort of like music discovery world, and that record sort of, I was like, oh wow, there's some cool new shit, and I'm meeting new people and doing new things, and I want to discover more again. And so that album did that for me, I think. And it was I think it's a great album. I wouldn't say, probably not my favorite album. I wouldn't say it's number one favorite album, but it's the most recent thing that sort of changed my life in music. And out of that, I wanted to play music again. And I started looking for other musicians in Vancouver, and not in Vancouver, sorry, in Berlin. And I just happened to find through my wife, who was there already, one of her friends was the singer from Social Unrest, California, like sort of skate punk band from the 80s. And he's living over there. And we started a band called the Disney Boys. And we did 4 or 5 years together, put a couple of records out together. And I really got back into playing music again and doing shows and just getting back into the scene and enjoying the whole thing again.
CC, being in Berlin, do you know Falcon or Chris from the Briefs?
Dude, I know Chris and Falcon. Yeah, Falcon I'd hang out with all the time. Chris is in Munich now, but yeah.
Is he cool? Yeah. And I'll tell you later. It's to get off the subject, but I had such a weird phone call from Falcon a few months back. He needed a favor. I hadn't talked to him, and my old band, The Beatings, did a tour with the Briefs in the early 2000s. And
I don't know why.
He asked me to do a favor for one of his childhood friends who was down there in St. Pete. So I hooked up Falcon, and I hadn't really talked to him in years and years. So you said Dirt Nap in Berlin. I was wondering if you knew those guys.
I love that guy. Yeah, he recently asked me if I could do PR for the Dead Boys tour, actually.
Oh, that's awesome. Are you going to help him out?
Well, in the end, he was like, they decided they wanted to put their money towards other things. So I was like, that's fine. But
are you still in Berlin now?
No, I'm back in Vancouver.
Oh, you're back in Vancouver.
I moved back here a few years ago.
Do you for your PR firm? Do you book tours, or are you doing more just like press stuff?
I'm totally new to it. It was a pandemic thing. I apprenticed with somebody that I thought was a cool PR person, because my bands have always had shitty experiences with PR, and I always sort of defaulted into doing it myself. So I just asked somebody. I was like, listen, can I work for you? I kind of do this anyway. Like, could you mentor me? And so I did that for a year during the pandemic. That's how I got into doing that thing.
Cool. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Well,
The Estranged.
Yeah. Great band. I liked them a lot too. They made an impression on me. So yeah, Mark Herman is the guy that I talked to. So yeah, nice guy. I wouldn't expect him to be so nice by the music that he played. But he was. So I don't know if Daniel can hear us or not, but
I'm here.
Oh, okay. All right.
Oh.
All right, man. Go ahead.
Longest episode ever. Dead Boys, Young, Loud, and Snotty, without a doubt. Hugely, just major game changer in every sense. Good rock songs. It kind of introduced me to Alice Cooper after that too. Just like I spiraled down rock and roll from that record. And yeah, that's it.
Love that album.
Yeah, me too. Great. So good.
Kevin's gonna bring us on home here with his.
All right, with my number one.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. For number one, I'm going with Legal Weapon, Death of Innocence. One of the greatest and most underrated punk rock records ever. And one of the greatest voices in rock ever, Cat Arthur. I mean, it's just a blistering punk rock record that has a lot of soul. Great There's some great blues influences going on with that. It's a very soulful punk rock record. Hard to describe. I mean, it's straight ahead. It's not like an experimental record or anything like that. But just the guitar playing, the songwriting. So I heard this one once again. We go back to the early '90s, and it was a bargain bin find. I think Triple X had reissued the first couple of records, and it obviously didn't catch on. So like it was in the bargain bin in no time. So I was able to pick up all three for like 99 cents a piece. And their first EP as well, which is mind-blowing. But Death of Innocence, every single track on that record is just amazing. And Cat Arthur's vocals are just soulful and aggressive, powerful. And at the same time, once again, a very relatable band. They make themselves vulnerable in their songs, and they can do killer ballads, and they can also do killer hyperpunk. At the same time, and they just spoke to me on a different level than other bands did. And they're Southern California, but I don't know. They just hit me in a way that those other bands didn't. I don't know, and it could be just they bring. To me, they were more three-dimensional than a lot of other, Southern California punk bands. And I don't need a band to be, three-dimensional. I'm perfectly fine with one-dimensional anything, if you deliver the goods. But Lethal Weapon just brought something different to the table. And I think, and as a songwriter, just made me aspire to more, or, just, aspire to that kind of, I don't know, depth. With my own songs, which, at the time, it's not like I replicated anything they did, but, they're pretty untouchable. And I've never heard a band before or after that sounds like them. And unfortunately, they'll kind of get just like, people will disregard them being like, oh, they just wanted to be like X, or they're like the Avengers. And I don't really hear that in their sound. They were just very unique. And I always try to bring them up, so people might check them out. They never got the attention they deserved.
I always kind of thought of them as kind of like somewhere in between like Tex and the Horseheads and Concrete Blonde.
That's a great description. And I love Tex and the Horseheads. I love Concrete Blonde. I love that vibe, just that vibe in general. I just really like it because I can really sink my teeth into it more than I can with other bands. It's just, I love it.
I love that you went kind of California with your choices, because you bring up, it's just there was a good dark kind of a good dark underbelly to that California sound that doesn't get celebrated these days with like the Descendants, Bad Religion, No FX kind of revisionist history of punk rock. You
nailed it, Adam. You nailed it. That's what I'm trying to say. With all those,
if you go back to like New Wave Theater, like hosted by Peter,
hell yeah, stuff, amazing,
like all those, you would see the artier underbelly, and LA and California and San Francisco punk was as arty and as dark as New York when it started.
Oh man, and I didn't include that in my list, but yet. Like the Suburban Lawns, I would have put in that list. If we had like 10 records, Suburban Lawns, and then even bands.
How awesome is Sue Tissue? And
beyond awesome. She should be celebrated, and she's not. You think she'd have more of a cult following, and then like you said, those other bands.
It's almost like, I think in more recent years than ever, like the of Sue Tissue, like people realized how awesome and like. On par with Devo that stuff was, and how quirky and amazing, original, and just original and unique. And that speaks to me, I guess, nowadays more so than back then, or I've just been exposed to more. But I just love bands that have a very unique voice that you can't classify very easily. Whereas nowadays, bands that you can just classify them or put them in a genre 3 seconds after hearing them, it just doesn't appeal to me because there's just not a lot to sink my teeth into. It's the best stuff
one-dimensional to a fault.
Confusing at first, or like you hear it and you're just like, "What the? I'm not sure if I get this." Like
right. It doesn't have the bubblegum factor. It doesn't have that bubblegum factor where the song sticks in your head, but something keeps bringing you back, and you're not sure what. And yeah, it's all those bands. It's like the dark underbelly, which, you know, really speaks to me. It's more relatable. It's not as like showbiz, like, you know, the bands you had mentioned that are always on the reunion tours and they have the merchandising down and everything's just perfect and everything worked out great for everyone. I'm like, who fucking cares, man? That's not life. to me, and that's why the dark underbelly's much more relatable, much more human in my eyes.
I'm with you.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know, yeah. I mean, I should have ended it right when you said that. So, I mean, thank you guys. I mean, I can't even begin to say how thankful I am that you guys wanted to come on here and do this for us, man. We really, really appreciate it. I want to maybe start with Adam. Adam, can you tell our listeners where can people go to buy your music, to follow you? Where are the best place where they can go?
Okay.
Listen to your band.
If you're on Spotify, the new Brutarians have our new album Hysteria on Alien Snatch Records available. I've been releasing EPs off of it and videos off of it, like crammed with B-sides. So we just have a new 7-song EP that came off of that with 6 non-LP tracks. I have so many just like covers and radio sessions and like just odds and sods that I'm loading up B-sides. I'm blowing my wad. I'm clearing the plate for the next record. So Spotify, Bandcamp, New Brutarians, Instagram at the New Brutarians, at Adam T Pop Artist, AdamTPopArtist.com. Follow me on Facebook. I'm always doing stuff. We're doing a record release party here in St. Pete next week, a week from tonight, with Gino and the Goons, Team Cobra from Washington, D.C., who just moved down here, who are a great garage rock duo. Jada and Bello is going to DJ, and Bite Size are going to play. So new stuff coming, always rocking, always creating, always new art. Just did a new album cover for Slaughter and the Dogs.
Awesome.
Cool.
Nice. Yeah.
That's on Spaghetti Town. I always forget what I've done and what's on the cards, but follow me. Rock and roll action ensues. Always.
Great. CC, where can people go to find your music, get in touch with your PR company?
Yeah. PR company is norulespr.com. And then Autogramm. I don't think we have a website anymore, but we're on all of the sort of digital service providers. Autogramms with 2 M's. Actually means autograph in German, which is kind of hilarious.
I didn't know
Autogramms.
that.
Yeah, I think that's it. Other bands I used to play in: Disney Boys, DYSNEA, weird spelling. Fires, Black Halos, all that stuff. It's all kind of available out there.
Daniel,
Yes.
where can people go to hear your music, man?
You can look up Moral Panic NYC. We've got an Instagram, a Facebook. You'll figure it out.
Daniel's already like in bed.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got a new record coming out, joint release with Alien Snatch and Reptilian Records. It's coming out September 9th.
Nice.
It's gonna rock your fucking world.
Can't wait to hear it, man. Great band.
The time you do this, everyone's gonna be like, "This is my number one influential record." So I hope.
Man, I hate to jump back in here, but I forgot something kind of important. I've got a solo single coming out on Snatch Records in Spain. That's coming out.
Awesome.
Oh, wow.
CC
Yeah.
Voltage solo record. There you go.
Cool.
Single.
All right, Kevin.
All right. So band is the Trouble Seekers. We're on Instagram, Facebook, Bandcamp, Spotify, every place. So there's an EP that's been out for a few months, but we have our full-length 15-song debut LP coming out. That'll be end of September, beginning of October. Yeah, and you can find me, Hillary and I, the Trouble Seekers, find us on there. And then I still have the prostitute sites going, and that's like on, Facebook, Instagram. I'm on there once in a while. But yeah, the show was awesome. Had a great time. Everyone on here was great hanging out with you guys. Ben was really fucking cool. Had a great time.
Yeah. For sure, Josh and I are huge fans of every single one of these guys, and believe us when we tell you they deserve your attention, they deserve your money. Go buy their records, go buy their merch, go see them if they ever come to your town live. They are definitely worth it. And like Daniel said, their records are going to be the records that change your life. So thank you so much, you guys, again, for coming on. And thank you to our listeners for tuning in. If you have the opportunity, please rate our podcast, leave us a comment, a review, whatever, because not only does it help our show, it helps spread the word on the projects that all these great guys have going on. And with that, this is the Born Too Late podcast signing off.